We've just had a second Brat Summer.
Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name's Lily Austin.
And my name's James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. And this week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about MIA films, movies that have completed principal photography but are still, as of yet, unreleased. What happened to them?
Lots of interesting stories there, and we'll also be paying tribute to the late, great Robert Redford, who unfortunately passed away this week at the age of 89.
But first, James, what film news do you have for us?
Well, things that have just kind of been on my radar the past couple of weeks that are kind of starting to come to a head. The big one, I think, is that the new owners of Paramount are potentially going to buy Warner Brothers. So Paramount has just been taken over, or been bought, by Skydance Productions, who I always see their name come up when I watch like my Mission Impossible. Skydance is always at the start of it. And just like a lot of, I would say, genre films is Skydance. So, you know, the kind of crowd-pleasing fare. Skydance are usually behind it. I think they have a reputation as well of being fairly good with keeping control of their budgets. So they're not like a Disney where their budgets just spiral out of control. So they seem to make mass entertainment reasonably priced. And it's a model that's clearly done very well for themselves. But the thing is, that all sounds like a great business. But then, how is it funded? Well, it's funded by the head of Skydance's dad is a billionaire Larry Ellison, who made his billions from a database company called Oracle. It's one of those kind of tech companies where you've never heard of them. They're not like an Apple or a Samsung or, you've never heard of Oracle, but they underpin the entire modern world, basically. Their database software, their systems. It's all the unsexy stuff, right? But he got in there first. If you've got a database of some description in your IT system or in, just underpinning somewhere, there'll be an Oracle database. So that's how he's made his money. So this Skydance company has essentially been funded and kept afloat through difficult times by dad's billions kind of being poured into it. So they've taken over Paramount, but they're looking to take over Warner's, which obviously immediately, without knowing much about things, that's a monopoly. That's like that's two of the biggest studios under one owner. So, and of course, each studio has their own, I think it's CBS and CBC, I can't remember. They both own a news network. So then you've got like these kind of all that kind of stuff going on. So it's controversial, but also these studios are completely on their knees financially, so they need someone to step in.
How can this even be allowed for one company to own two of the biggest studios in Hollywood?
I think the issue is if it doesn't happen, one of the, Warner's may go under. I mean, they're splitting the business off at the moment, but Warner. So they had this great idea around the pandemic time. Let's combine our businesses into one big business. They realized that combining your streaming, which loses you billions, with your profitable arm, which is your studios making films, realized that tying those together are a bad idea. So they've now going, oops, let's split them apart and then let's sell off the theatrical business, which is what Paramount are looking at. Because David Zaslav, he's like the contrary. He kind of took over Warner Brothers. I can't remember how long ago now. He's fairly recent. Let's say the past 5 or 6 years. And he's somebody who the euphemism is like Wall Street like him. What that means is that he's just cut loads of costs and he's slashed things. Like for example, we're going to talk later about missing in action films. It was David Zaslav specifically who said we're going to write off Batgirl as a tax write down. So that's why Batgirl the film was shot, edited, almost finished, and was pulled from release, was he was trying to cut costs, trying to bring the money cost down. So it made it a more attractive proposition to now sell it as he is doing. So he just came in, cut costs, asset stripped, and now it's like, right, put it up to sale. That's exactly what the Wall Street people like,
Okay, well, I think we put that under the headline of bad news movie store.
Sorry.
Movie. No. This is the reality, folks, of Hollywood that we're
Can
in.
I just say that, like, I agree, it's probably bad news in a lot of respects, but the bit of me that's like, okay, I'm interested to see what does this mean about the films that are put out. Like, for example, there's rumours that the Ellisons, both of them, are big Star Trek fans. And Star Trek, the past few years, it's kind of just... I've tried to watch it, and it's just not for me. It is losing viewers, and it has become a much niche program. So
wait, is it
there's
still
maybe
going,
a chance they're going to
Star
resurrect
Trek?
it and bring it back a bit.
Is it still going?
Exactly, Lily. That it's going, but it's so little in the pop culture that people don't even realize it's still
I had
going.
no
Yeah.
idea. That's blown my mind.
Yeah, well, exactly. Just no one's watching it. So there's talk that they might come in and say, right, we're going back to basics, good old Star Trek, how you like it. So, and because they're from Skydance, which is very much a populist mainstream entertainment, maybe we'll get some good films out of it. Who knows?
Mm,
But that's the one ray of light I'm clinging on to, Lily. Clinging on to it.
absolutely. Okay. Well, it's a good news stories for theaters. I don't know if it's good news for film companies, but Taylor Swift this weekend past broke the AMC app. She announced that she's returning to the big screen in October. You guys might remember we did an episode about her concert movie. I think that was the year before last. I forget exactly when it was, but recently. Well, her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, is coming out on October 3rd. And so to kind of coincide with that, they're doing this 89-minute quote unquote release party event in theaters. So as far as I understand it, it will show the music video for her lead song. And then there'll be some, I think, kind of backstage footage or so. I'm honestly, who knows what it really is going to include, because it's not like a documentary, it's not a concert film, but whatever it may be, the Swifties have come out in force. The Taylor Swift famously loves to have these sort of Easter egg and symbolism, and she's kind of obsessed with certain numbers. Well, 12 is the important number for this album because it's her 12th album and contains 12 songs. So the tickets for this weekend have cost $12, and they went on sale at 12 minutes past 12 on Friday. And basically, as soon as they did, the AMC app started to get these hour-long queues, making it difficult for people to buy tickets, even for other screenings. But I mean, it's good news for theaters, that's for sure. I feel bad for any film that had been slated to come out that weekend for, a year prior.
I mean, the amount of reruns and kind of like re-releases I'm seeing, I think theaters are just desperate for something in the come out that is going to get people into the cinema. I am a little disappointed, I have to say, Lily. I was hoping that the next Taylor Swift thing that will be coming into cinemas might be her first debut feature film that's been, circulating on the rumor mill for a few years. I was hoping that might be the next Taylor Swift thing in the theaters.
I like that. I like that you're embracing her Taylor Swift's creativity, because honestly, I'm scared for when she does move into directing.
I'm here. I'm totally here for it. I mean, she's making all the right moves, which is she started directing her own music videos, and she's also started adding, like, a lot of music videos have these little narrative bits at the beginning. She started doing
and I don't think they're very good.
That's how a lot of feature directors get into it.
I don't think they're very good. I don't think she's a great. I don't think those music videos are fantastic, honestly.
No, I mean, they're not my cup. They're not my cup of tea, but they're certainly, they're kind of that kind of thing,
Yeah,
as far as that kind of video goes.
I foresee some. I don't want to be dismissive. She's a very savvy businesswoman, but I can just see a rather lackluster rom-com in our future if she does get into directing.
Oh no, I think because she's got an idea about like some woman who used to live in the house or the house next door to her who has
no. She bought a house that has a very interesting. James, I can tell you about this. Yes, from one of she owns a house that was actually I lie. I can't tell you the full details, but it has a very interesting legacy because the woman who previously owned the house. She married a wealthy man, moved into the neighborhood, was considered very scandalous, and because she had all these wild parties there, so she kind of, I think, wanted to make it. I mean, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting, but I don't know. I don't trust her aesthetic taste.
Right. Okay.
I love her music.
I mean,
don't think aesthetically, I'm not for it.
And I love, she's obviously trying to soak up as much I don't know, wisdom as possible. Like I saw an interview with her being interviewing I've forgotten his name now, the director of Ghost of Inisherin and In Bruges.
Yes, McDonald something.
Yes.
Yes.
Marty McDonald, Marty McDonough. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that it's done so well. But what the hell is a release party 89-minute film? What's going to be in it?
Yeah, I know. Who honestly knows? But it will be It's interesting because I think this is certainly not something really that's been done before. I don't think. I mean, hard to say without actually having seen it, but it sounds like a bit of an slight innovation of what can go out in theaters. And obviously the fact that they're calling it like a album release launch party, and usually these things are like a ticketed event where a few hundred people at most can go, but this will be not just in America, that it's going to be simultaneously across the world over that weekend. It's quite a nice way to firm up your community around your music and kind of get people feeling more involved with it. So I think it could be an innovation that other musicians do, and that is definitely good news for theaters because, yeah, as you said, they're really struggling. I mean, even this weekend, we were looking at what was out, and honestly, there was nothing really that was grabbing us to discuss. So I think it's an amazing thing, actually. Like, it's very business savvy. She has a direct kind of business arrangement with AMC to make as much from this as possible. She's not going through any kind of middleman. But I think on the whole, it's good news.
Yeah, like she did with a concert film. I think AMC realised it's a pretty sweet deal, dealing directly with Taylor Swift. It works well for both people. And then to wrap off our news section, news of another female filmmaker. Anna Biller is just wrapped production on her, I think it's her third feature film actually, but her follow-up feature to a perennial favourite of ours, The Love Witch. It's a film called The Face of Horror, and she's been shooting in studio and on location in Prague. And this came up on my radar. I had no idea that Anna Biller was about to do another film, but I happened to follow a cinematographer called M. David Mullen, and he's the cinematographer of The Love Witch, amongst many other things like The Marvelous Miss Maisels on Amazon Prime. He's a working cinematographer, and I just noticed one day that he had some kind of shot from Prague, and I don't know, I just guessed that he was working with Anna Biller. I can't remember what it was that kitted me off, but his stories every day, he would post a story. It would be very cryptic. He wasn't really giving anything away, but sometimes it would be from the set, and it was like a gothic castle set, and then you see the shooting on film. Then there was another shot where there was some monks, kind of, you'd say it was period, but it's almost like gothic novel period. It didn't seem like it was meant to be like The Love Witch. I don't think we're going for realism here. We're going for that kind of stylized fantasy world, which I'm totally here for. So yeah, and Anna Biller recently posted on Instagram that she's very thankful. She said it was strange for her to work on a set and have people doing things for her, because famously The Love Witch, Anna Biller did everything. She designed and hand stitched all the costumes, she built all the sets, all the props, all that stuff. So now she's kind of obviously got more money. I'm sure it's not a huge budget, but now she's I guess she's getting people to have to do that for her because she couldn't afford the time to build everything.
Yeah, actually, I feel like this is a good moment to re-recommend The Love Witch, which we have also discussed on the podcast before, because we're getting into witchy season. It's almost October, and this is just the most fantastic film. Like you said, has this kind of vintagey 60s aesthetic, but very much stylized and fantasy, and it's just incredible casting. That actress in that movie, I mean, I was just completely obsessed with her. She's just completely magnetic.
Oh, I mean, it's one of those things where an actor gets a role in their career and it's just they were the only person who could do it, and just I can't imagine another actor embodying Elaine as well as Samantha Robinson playing that character, how she does, and just the film that she happens to be in playing that character works so well. It all comes together. It's you try and describe it to people, it's got a B movie feel about it. It's very B movie, but it's also got something to say, but it's also having fun with whatever it is it's saying, and it's just a pleasure to watch for me.
Yeah, it really is. It does put you in mind of B movies from the 70s that are set in a previous era, which in itself is something that I really love. But the kind of, I don't know, there are just so many layers to this movie. It's one of the best I've ever seen, and maybe my favorite of all your recommendations, James, though. I don't know. It's between that and North Sea Hijack.
Love it. Oh, great. There's no time for any Nolans, North Sea Hijack, and The Love Witch. I'll take that.
Well, I mean, but these are deep cuts, Anyone can recommend a Nolan movie and they'd
True.
be correct to do it. I'm not trying to denigrate. Yeah, but these two guys, put those on your list. These are the next things to watch. The Love Witch and North Sea Hijack. I'm not going to say anything about North Sea Hijack because we don't have time for him. But it's an incredible movie and Sean Connery at his finest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The role he was, again, an iconic role, I think, there. But weirdly, perhaps the role he was meant to play more than James Bond.
Okay, yeah, we're getting into it, but
think...
we'll resist. I think we have discussed that on the podcast before as well, potentially. So, guys, go back, look in the back catalogue. Our film news go-to, World of Real, this week updated an article titled, "Where are these films? These completed projects are still MIA." Which got us thinking all about the all too common phenomenon of films which finish shooting, they wrap on production on the set, but then they're not released. They kind of get stuck in that post-production world. So we kind of wanted to just talk about that because it is this sort of things just go missing, and then you hear about something getting cast, and you might even see a couple of films shots from set, some images about it, and there'll be a little bit of buzz, and then they just go away, and it's very sad, but yeah, as I said, very common.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I think has made headlines and perhaps made people aware that this is a phenomenon is Batgirl recently getting cancelled, shelved. I mean, I followed that one quite closely just because I'm kind of interested in Hollywood tittle-tattle and production and what's going down.
That's why we have this podcast.
Absolutely, that's why we do the podcast. I mean, that's one of the things I'm interested in filmmaking. There's just so many aspects to it, and one of them is the tittle-tattle. So David Zaslav, who we just mentioned, the head of Warner's, comes in. Wall Street love him because he's a slash and burn, cut the cost, don't care about artists or creativity. He's the reason, just to be clear, why Christopher Nolan left Warner Brothers. Remember, because in the pandemic, during the lockdown, they overnight decided to release all of their film slate onto HBO Max, the streaming service, for free without consulting any of the directors. Now, Christopher Nolan's film wasn't included in that, but he was doing the typical the thing that you should do when you've got a position of power and status. He wanted to support the people who didn't have as the power and status that he did. So he walked from Warner Brothers. That's David Zaslav. That was the knock-on effect of one of his business decisions. So this, again, Batgirl. I wasn't that excited about the Batgirl when I saw it coming out. It just didn't, Batgirl's an okay comic character, but solo movie, and also I saw it was like slightly low budget. It was being made direct for, I think it was actually being made directly for streaming as well. So it was a direct to streaming film, about an $80 million budget. Brendan Fraser was in it playing the villain, which that was kind of quite interesting. But then it got cut as a tax write-down. And the thing about when you put a film as a tax write-down, you have to basically destroy the film. There can be no copy of the film that can ever be shown. So the directors, it was a directing duo. They were, I think, at Will Smith's, not sure, it was a wedding that Will Smith was also attending, because they tweeted a picture of them with Will Smith, and then they were saying, we can't believe it, we went to a wedding, we met Will Smith, or words to that effect, and then when we came back to work, everything had gone from our computers, because everything's in the cloud, so they'd been working from rough cuts, and they were viewing copies of the film, but only in the cloud, because what they weren't expecting was over the weekend for Warner's to do a tax write-off and delete, or at least withdraw any copies in the cloud. Just they've gone. So yeah, so even the directors don't have a copy of the film.
Oh my god, my hands are in my head. That is just the most horrible story I've ever heard.
Absolutely. Like, everybody who worked on that film, Brendan Fraser, like, you see shots of him, he's fucking doing his own stunts again, like he did in The Mummy. Has he not learned? He seems to be like attached to the side of a vehicle, and he's got flamethrowers coming out of his hand because they want practical effects. Like, he put a lot on the line there to play that villain. Nothing.
Yeah. It's just, there are so many levels to which it's so tragic when these films don't come out. I mean, that is a particularly like harrowing, brutal version of it. I mean, how awful to not even be warned and offered therapy to deal with it. Because, the thing is, you go through shooting a movie. We've seen with the behind the scenes movies of, okay, Apocalypse Now is a particularly extreme example, but it's never easy to make a film. The shooting of a film is incredibly complicated and difficult. And even just to get to that point, the pre-production on that, it's so much work, so many hours, so much time, so much money, so much care, and so many people involved. And then when you get to the end of shooting a movie, you're not really even at the halfway point, because then post-production, I mean, depending on the movie, but even for a kind of, smaller, let's say, small budget movie, that is itself. There's a lot more work to go into it. And then you get into, marketing the movie, it's such a long process. But to have gone through that shooting, and all those, I mean, I was thinking about the actors and how like sad that must be. But at least you can just be like, okay, I had the experience. It's a shame not to be able to actually see the product of my work, the end result. But okay, but for the writers and the directors and the producers, even, all the people who've put so much into it, it's just devastating.
Yeah, and all the streets they locked down in Glasgow where the businesses couldn't trade properly. But it was like, don't you worry, this will do great for Glasgow when it oh God, it hasn't come out. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of pissed off people around Glasgow going, what was the point of that? Of course, that one was, so the plan was never it to be a tax write-off. It wasn't cynically made, the film. However, Fantastic Four from 1992 is very well known in the circles of missing action films as being deliberately created knowing it was never going to get released, because the rights to Marvel characters is still a nightmare. It's getting better as Disney are being able to buy them all up, but still, even to this day, like Sony, for example, have a part ownership in the Spider-Man character, so Marvel don't fully own it. And back in the day, the Fantastic Four, they were with a different company. A producer bought the rights to Fantastic Four for dirt cheap back in the 90s or the late 80s, when nobody was making Marvel films. Marvel was kind of, no one was interested. So, but one of the provisos of the rights was that you had to have a Fantastic Four film produced within a certain time frame of having the rights. So this was just like a business decision. If we don't have a Fantastic Four film made, then the rights are going to go back to Marvel. And so we can't have that, so let's just make a trash, cheap Roger Corman, who's the master of making cheap, quick films. They got him to produce it, and so it was all done cynically just to keep hold of the rights to Fantastic Four.
Doom, it's clobbering time. The Fantastic Four.
But is that an actual known fact? Because I heard that was the rumor, and that there are kind of a couple of competing theories about what happened. Because they actually, from what I read, they promoted this movie, it was released, and then suddenly it was all pulled and never fully officially came out. But you can actually, there were some copies around in circulation, though it was not officially ever released. You could kind of see it for a while in the 90s.
Yeah, well, I've been listening to the unauthorized biography of Marvel, which is like a huge wedge tome, and it's one of those books that I would recommend. It's like they're meant to be the definitive of Marvel. So, and I've actually got to the Fantastic Four bit, because I was like you, I've heard a bit of this, that, and the other, but I think what I've just described is as close as possible. Now there were versions you could see. They're all like bootleg copies. That's the thing, that because obviously working in the cloud on Batgirl, there were no bootleg copies because it was all working in the cloud, and it was easy for them to pull it. But back in the 90s, people had VHS copies. There'll have been dupe work in progress prints, so it was easier to get a bootleg. So all the versions that people have seen are some kind of bootleg. There's certainly never been like a nice transferred release of it. And as
I'm
far
just
as
surprised they would go so far. They would go to the level of making marketing material.
Yeah.
if they're no intention.
I think that was all part of the con. It had to be done. To legally fulfill the contract, they couldn't just say, "Oh, we just cobbled it together." They had to go through the motions, basically. So the cast were never told that, "Oh, this is never going to get released." Everyone was treated like this is going to happen. But I do think that was part of the con. Was part of the we've just got to do it as if we mean it. But we don't. Tee-hee.
I mean, honestly, is there any surprise that film studios are in trouble if they're doing these sorts of crazy, waste of, it's just the business rationale behind this, to me, seems completely bizarre.
And that's why we got the god awful that 2015 Fan 4 stick, which was another film, this time done by Fox, but actually released and made. But the only reason it was released in 2015 was because of this goddamn deadline to hang on to the rights. So this awful Fantastic Four film, I try again, unwatchable garbage, like really bad. Like I can sit through the ones from the noughties that had Jessica Alba in. I actually they're silly, childish things, but I can sit through them and at least kind of have some entertainment. But anyway, sorry, yes.
The other one I'm intrigued. The thing about it is that sometimes when you read about these, you're like, oh, that sounds like intriguing, and so you have to kind of mourn what you never knew, you know.
So which one's that for you, Lily? Which one's that for you?
For me, it's Empires of the Deep. So that was intended for release in 2011, and it was an action adventure movie, a US-Chinese co-production, which is kind of an interesting relic that I'm sure we're not going to see again for some time. But It was apparently meant to be a sort of their take on Avatar, but with see, I wonder if Avatar then stole this concept for their subsequent sequel, because it was instead like an underwater version where mermaid kingdoms are battling each other. Now, I love a mermaid as a concept. Magical, exciting. You know, I love a kind of fantasy but interpersonal relationship type movie. So for me, the idea of like the mermaid towns and like how people would have their like, you know, front gardens in Mermaid Land or whatever it would be, you know, putting on the washing, hanging up. I just, for me, that's what I'm imagining.
You want to see the domestic lives of mermaids, I see, okay.
Yes. For me, that is like so pleasing, you know. But sadly, it's never going to be, because the movie ran into financial issues, basically. I think they began production on it and it had some good people behind it. Sharon Stone was going to be in the movie. There are some interesting stills of like the cast in their kind of mermaid costumes that maybe I'll see if I can add to the show notes.
Did they actually shoot it, or did it fall apart before it got shot?
That's a good question. I mean, I literally have seen pictures of them in costume, so I imagine, but maybe that was just like costuming. Let me check.
Because there's a classic, another great film that went kind of missing in action, didn't quite get to production phase. It was Tim Burton's Superman, starring Nicolas Cage. And of course, they've got some, you check out the photographs of Nicolas Cage in the Superman suit on the internet. He's got long hair. And people are like, what a ridiculous thing. That was because it was a costume test before he'd cut his hair for the role. So it does look kind of weird.
Gotcha.
But
yes, this one did start filming in 2009. But it just kept running into disasters. Multiple directors left. There were creative clashes, apparently. And then, we started to get into these financial problems where the cast weren't being paid. People were having late payments. And so basically, they kind of just had to pull the plug mid-production.
Yeah, oh God, and directed by Catwoman director Pitoff. You know, that's not really a gold stamp of approval. I mean, he's a great French commercials director, but gee whiz. Again, some of the times, you know, every now and again, I'm just like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to just see what Catwoman's like. And then you're like, oh God, no, can't sit through this. And then there's very rarely are there bigger directors, let's say, or more name marquee directors who have films where this doesn't happen. I mean, there's a couple of unrealized projects from Orson Welles, but one from 2008 is David O. Russell's film that I can't quite figure out what name it was filmed under, but it was called Accidental Love.
It's embedded deep in the left front lobe, so she could be brain damaged for life.
Wait! She has no insurance. Shut it down.
Thank you, Arlene.
Congressman Woodwell, I'm from your district. Yes. I saw you on TV. You were great.
That idiot can't help you, Alex.
What brings you to D.C.?
I came to see you because I want to help people that have weird conditions that they can't afford to fix.
Alice, what's up?
Hi, Alice.
Yikes.
I guess that's healthcare.
Oh, dear. That's not very manageable.
Which is a Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Biel starring film that David O. Russell actually shot. And from what I understand, there was just one big wide shot that features all the characters and has a major set piece. That wasn't shot. And without that, the film doesn't make any sense, apparently. That's my vague understanding of it. So for whatever reason, David O. Russell walked away from it, but the financiers wanted to make some money back, so they cobbled together a version and shoved that out into cinemas that nobody went to see. And it's an Alan Smithy film as well. It's one of those classic, Alan Smithy is the name that directors put to a film where they want their name taken off it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about this.
Well, you didn't know about Alan Smithy?
No, what is Alan Smithy?
Oh my God, right. Sorry, I didn't realize. Alan Smithy is the name that, right. So when a film's released, Directors Guild of America, there has to be a director's name on the credits, okay? But if you've worked on a project, you're like, I don't want my name on the credits, it's a tradition in Hollywood. I don't know quite where it came from, but it's Alan Smithy. So you'll see Alan Smithy on IMDb has got the most eclectic, craziest filmography that spans decades because it's a fictional character. They, of course, did make a comedy film called an Alan Smithy film, right? It stars Eric Idle, and that was a comedy, and it was about Eric Idle playing a director called Alan Smithy, and comedy ensues. However, get this, the film was such a shit show flop that the director of it was like, I don't want my name on it, so it's directed by Alan Smithy, the film about Alan Smithy. Anyway, Francis Ford Coppola directed Supernova, didn't want his name on it, or he kind of came in to do lots of pickups, so that's an Alan Smithy film, but really it's a Francis Ford Coppola film. Things like that. So Alan Smithy, look him up.
Okay, I feel like there is some kind of quick little Alan Smithy segment we can do on this podcast where we look at some of the more interesting movies.
Oh yeah,
by that director.
I'd be well up for that.
Yeah, no, God, I had no idea.
Oh, for some reason I thought we talked about it, but never mind. Always good to have something new.
Well, yeah, and honestly, we may well have done, but my memory is appalling. Well, so I mean. Obviously, you can imagine what the most common reasons for this happening are. The all too frequent quote unquote creative differences. Basically, like someone's an arsehole, probably both people are an arsehole and not getting on.
Yeah.
Money problems, the expense and length of post-production. It's interesting what you were saying about they decided to cobble together a version of it and release it anyway to make some money back, because that to me always seems like, a fool's errand. Like if you're cobbling something together, you're definitely going to make a loss, right? You're never going to make that money back, or probably any money back. It's just going to be more of a loss by the time you've put it out there and spent the money on that. But I thought I was interested in this list, this World of Real list, because it's some of these movies that right now are MIA may well end up being released at some point. So looking over them, James, were there any on the list that piqued your interest that you thought either I think that probably will end up coming out, it's probably just got a bit delayed, or who knows, but I'm very keen to see it?
Well, I wouldn't say that I want to. It's one of those things, right? I don't particularly think I'll ever want to sit down and watch it, but it is like the ultimate missing action film, which is The Day the Clown Cried, which was directed and starring Jerry Lewis, and it was like a very deeply personal project for him. But as soon as you hear the premise, you're just like, oh, I'm not sure about this as an idea for a film. It's about a clown whose job was to cheer up the children who were in the queues to go inside Auschwitz, and I just thought that's
the fuck.
Oh, did you not know that was the premise, Lily? Oh, right, yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he filmed it all,
God.
and at no point did anybody say Jerry. Maybe this, I guess well, he was kind of maybe just at the tail end, but the height of his fame and his powers. He'd done The Nutty Professor, things like that. So I think this might have been his blank check movie where he was allowed to indulge himself. And he's a very good director, actually, a bit underrated, really. But a tough one, I can imagine. To get right, if at all even possible.
But are there any that are right now on this list, this World of Real list, that are kind of currently missing, as opposed to historically missing? I guess like that one that you would be interested in seeing, that you have high hopes for coming out at some point.
You've pinned me down. Sorry, it's the Way of the Wind, and yet another Terrence Malick missing in action film. Because for decades there was a documentary about like the birth and death of the universe that he'd been making since the 70s. You say making, what I think he was doing was leading the financiers along. And in fact, some of the visual effects work from this documentary about the dawn of time he used in Tree of Life, and the producers of the documentary sued him because he said, hang on a bloody second, this documentary we've been waiting 30 years for you to finish. You can't just use the VFX in another film, but he did. Anyway, so The Way of the Wind, shot is still editing it. I mean, that's the one I'm really interested in.
Yeah, it's been 6 years since it was since they began on that one. But honestly, I mean, Terrence Malick has some interesting movies, but they're often quite sort of serious,
contemplative and serious.
Yeah. I wouldn't say like broad entertainment. So yeah, I think so often there's a reason these movies are on the list. I am interested in Boots Riley's new film, which has also kind of gone missing. I Love Boosters, it's called, apparently. And I mean, I'm very sad for him if this is just one that's going to kind of vanish, because Sorry to Bother You was one of my favorite films from that year that came out quite a while ago now, I think. So I don't know what's happened to that. Fingers crossed that will kind of reappear. There's another movie on their list called Art Monster, directed by Kathy Yan, which is apparently a psychological drama starring Natalie Portman, and apparently some high profile backing is what they say on this list. I don't quite know what that means exactly, like specifically, but I guess there was some buzz around it. There was some money behind it, and so it's perhaps surprising that it's disappeared. But I mean, I don't know. There may well be some reason for that. I mean, it is difficult. Sometimes, you get the rushes, you get the edit on the film going, and it's like, is this actually how we're going to market this? Is this going to work?
Yeah.
But the one I'm most interested in is Faces of Death, because this movie was filmed back in 2023. And it stars Barbie Ferreira and Charlie XCX. It's a remake of a 1978 horror film with the same name. There was loads of buzz about this. Like, if you like Google this movie now, you can see there are so many articles where because there's quite a big cast of like young actors, and they were all excited about this movie, hyping it up. It would have made perfect sense, right, for the movie to come out last summer during Brat Summer, tie-in with Charlie XCX's, like, the buzz around her. And yet it's just vanished, and there's no sign of when it's going to appear.
Well, here's my thought on perhaps how this might play out, Lily, is that I do know that Charlie XCX has filmed an A24 film where I think she's the lead. So what I would imagine, if I was the Faces of Death producers, I would hang on, let that A24 film be released, and then off that kind of hope that goes reasonably well, and then that's the perfect time to release the one that you've already got made with Charlie XCX. I would do that. I would let the A24, because they're going to have more money to spend on marketing. They can push their film more, and then you can release yours off the back of it. That would be my thought.
But Charlie XCX was not bigger than last summer, and Barbie Ferreira was kind of more in the zeitgeist last year. So I sort of think, I mean, okay, they've missed it now. So yeah, maybe this is makes sense now.
I mean, Lily, we've just had a second Brat Summer. Who thought Brat Summer would have legs till this summer? She was. Well, sorry. From what my students posted on their Instagram stories, they're all over her concerts. The album's been released in about 4 different types of formats. My favourite's the Brat. It's the same but got 4 different songs version. There's the remixes, the one that's the collaborations with Billie Eilish. So it's kept coming. So my question, Lily, is: do we think we're going to have a third Brat Summer? Do we think we're going to leg out to summer number 3?
Well, let's hope so, for the sake of Faces of Death. I mean, yeah, horror movies, as we've talked about, horror movies are basically like your safest bet of all the genres these days. So, and it's the kind of film that I think probably you can hold off a bit longer, and it's still gonna work probably. Some things age, some things date, so you've got to get them out when you can. But okay, let's keep our fingers crossed for next summer, James.
I mean, and I'm also just while we're talking about Charlie XCX, loving following her on Letterboxd. It was recently, a few months ago, like she was outed as this was Charlie XCX's Letterboxd account, so immediately followed. She's got some great taste in films. She's a proper cinephile.
Okay, great. You've heard it here first. Follow Charlie XCX on Letterboxd and then follow us as well, Groovy Movies Pod.
Well, follow us first, and then Charlie XCX.
Yes, you're right. Us first, please.
Right. So, well, after that rather entertaining little whip around the missing in action films, something that we hadn't planned for at all was the fact that Robert Redford passed away this past week. One of the Hollywood giants, really. Probably when you think of classic Hollywood movie stars, he's right up there with them, isn't he? Really, just somebody who, in my life anyway, has always existed as a film star.
Yes.
They just it seemed that was always who and what they were.
Yes, totally. You think Robert Redford, you think Mater Dei Idol, you think Hollywood in the 70s, you think those beautiful eyes. Or is that just me?
Yeah, beautiful man. And there's he is a screen actor. He's a film actor. He's that kind of actor who's got the charisma. He's got the looks. There's just that something about him that when you have him in your film, you can't help looking at him. The camera loves him. He's a beautiful man, but also just when you see him on screen, there's something about him that just jumps out at you.
It's true, but actually, I was keen to kind of talk about him because he's actually a lot more than just a pretty face. And I think his whole career, he really worked to not be just kind of pigeonholed into the pretty boy, leading man kind of box. And he had a really interesting and sometimes quite sad life, actually. So he was born in Santa Monica in 1936, and when he was about to go off to university, his mum tragically died. And also around that time, his two young twin sisters also died. So he started off his life in this really tough way and basically went to university. He says he just became the college drunk and then quickly dropped out, or perhaps was asked to leave. But that actually was the start of his kind of political and social consciousness awakening, because he went to Paris and kind of fell in with what was happening there in the 60s. And it just made him become a lot more conscious of what was happening politically in the US at the time, which he said he was kind of unaware of before. But he came back to the US and got married to a woman called Lola Van Wagenen. And and then from there, he kind of started his acting career. I found it kind of amazing to read, though it does make sense of what I know about him, that they basically always lived in Utah. They raised their children there and kind of away from Hollywood, because the whole time he was becoming this Hollywood star and having this string of hits that he had in the 70s, he actually, his private life was very separate to that, and basically on a farm with his wife and kids.
Yeah, it was very much about the work, and also I think that's part of what made a movie star kind of a movie star back in the day, was the mystique. Was if they had a private life, the less you knew about them, the more intriguing they were.
That's true, but there were a lot of. I mean, that's true, and there wasn't the same. But there were a lot of Hollywood actors that were written about who were, on the scene of Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got your rebel rousers who will get you into the kind of the gossip columns, who are like the outrageous ones, your Jack Nicholsons. But then
exactly, that's who I was thinking of.
Quite, so they generate their own mystique by their actions. The other ones kind of, like Robert Redford just kind of takes a step back. I mean, for me, I just think his work with the Sundance Institute, that obviously he kind of founded in 1981 and based off the name of Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, an iconic role that he played. I mean, without the Sundance Institute, we wouldn't really have Quentin Tarantino's career, or at least it wouldn't be the way it was. We wouldn't have had Christopher Nolan meeting his cinematographer the vast majority of his career, Wally Pfister. They met at various events that were around or involved with Sundance. So it's been a real incubator of kind of Hollywood's newest talent.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I mean, he's remembered as being, probably his most famous roles are Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Great Gatsby, All the President's Men, probably. But I think actually not everyone remembers that he was the one who founded the Sundance Institute and then subsequently the Sundance Film Festival, also based in Utah, as I've mentioned, where he loved to be. They kind of took over this struggling Utah Film Festival, and then that kind of evolved into what became known as the Sundance Film Festival. And yeah, I mean, this whole institute, you know, it was about supporting independent directors, independent artists in making films. And that is his legacy, right? It's like kind of incredible. I mean, we have his movies, of course, and he'll always be remembered for those. But to have something that has done so much to keep independent film going is just kind of incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he's the classic. He's definitely given back to the kind of the industry that kind of made him who he was, and so I think it's almost like a way of returning and encouraging. I guess making sure the industry that he loves is still there in some respect.
And also, I mean, he's also a director. You know, he basically had this string of hits in the 70s. In the same year that he did The Way We Were, he also made The Sting, which won the best Oscar that year and was his only acting Oscar nomination was for that movie, which I found kind of staggering. And then throughout the 70s, as I mentioned, he made The Great Gatsby. Shortly after, 3 Days of the Condor, which Leo, my husband, was telling me that his grandfather worked for the production company of this movie. And whenever he went out to try and sell it, he was kind of the middleman in Italy. And whenever he went to try and like sell this movie to distributors, they'd say, okay, well, can I get it for half price? Because it's based on a book called 6 Days of the Condor.
All right, I see. Very good. Like, I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't really even heard of that film. And it came up on Netflix a couple of years ago. So I just, Robert Redford, what the hell is this? And I was gripped.
This is a Major.
This is Joe Turner.
Identification?
My name is Turner. I work for you. Now listen.
Identify yourself.
What is your designation?
Condor.
Something has happened.
Section 9, Department 17. The section's been hit.
What level?
What level?
Level of damage.
Everybody. Dr. Lapp, Janice, Ray, Harold. Everybody is dead.
It's so good, and it's like you know, it's a conspiracy thriller, and it's, you know, obviously it's shot and set in the 70s, conspiracy thriller. Robert Redford, proper, like, I don't know, American Hollywood entertainment from that era, just very well done, you know.
Yes. I have to say, yeah, The Sting is the one that won the Oscar, but I have to say, yeah, 3 Days of the Condor is a lot more exciting, in my opinion. I mean, they're both good movies, but
yeah, I agree with you. I found 3 Days of the Condor much more gripping, much more get me into it.
Yeah. And then All the President's Men involved. But he had all of these hits. It was kind of like, okay, he's established, he's a huge star. But then by the 80s, he kind of shifted and moved into directing. And from then he made much fewer films, was much more kind of selective about what he made because he wanted to focus on this. So his debut movie, Ordinary People, that won him an Oscar. I think it won Best Picture and he also won Best Director. I have to say, hands up, I've not seen the movie, but from what I've heard about it, it's like a very serious family kind of, almost like kitchen sink drama. It's like serious. And I think in a way it sort of fits with Robert Redford as a person because, you know, fantastic actor, but you can tell, right, him as a person is quite a shy, kind of slightly mysterious because he's an introverted person and very serious. You know, like I mentioned his kind of political awakening in Paris. He was a real kind of like campaigner for ecological issues and, you know, and was very socially aware. And I think that's, you can kind of see that in some of his films, is that he wants to make these kind of serious, emotional dramas. And they weren't always like the most fun movies until we get to Quiz Show in 1994.
Geritol presents the exciting quiz program, 21.
Give me the name of the explorer who discovered Mozambique.
Vasco da Gama?
Correct, for 10 points.
Temple is an underdog. You know, people root for that.
Sure, wasn't Herbie terrific?
Have you seen the ratings?
I'd like you to meet next week's challenger, Charles Van Doren.
Hello.
What if we would ask you questions that you know?
Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
Just an idea.
Was that part of the test?
Which is like a really great movie and really exciting. And I was like, okay, this is where, I mean, it was quite a small movie and not that many people saw it, but it's really that, guys, I would strongly recommend if you want to see something that he's directed where I really felt like, okay, this is like him hitting his stride, because it's got this like kind of serious like underpinning to it, because it's exploring corruption in 1950s television, and that, you know, I think was speaking to other issues that were happening in the time in the 90s. But it's just a really, really exciting movie, and Ralph Fiennes probably at his best.
Oh, Ralph Fiennes, isn't it? Great. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I was going to recommend it, it would be 3 Days of the Condor, but also All the President's Men, although be prepared to just lose track of what's going on. Like, I mean, I've watched it about 3 times now, and I still can't quite follow it all, but that's kind of part of what it's like, I imagine, was the idea of how complex this investigation was. But it's very engrossing seeing journalists kind of on the chase.
Yeah, that was the first movie I actually ever saw with him in. I watched that when I was a teenager. I think I'd probably learnt about Watergate at school or something, and so was interested to watch the movie. And it is a really good movie, but I actually think that The Candidate is better, which is a similar kind of a thing. It's also a kind of political drama, but that weirdly came out literally 12 days after Watergate happened. So it's like absurdly prescient, and it's just a bit of a cooler movie.
Okay, fair. Well, plenty to go on there.
So I think, so our list, if you want to have an entry point into Robert Redford, James, so we're saying All the President's Men, Quiz Show, 3 Days of the Condor, Candidate, Butch Cassidy, it's got to be, and The Sundance Kid, of course, the namesake. And the other one I've got to shout out is The Way We Were, because I mean, it's probably his not one of his more complex roles, but it's great to see him in a romantic lead playing a kind of emotionally unavailable, waspy, upper-class guy, because, I mean, let's be honest, he fits the part aesthetically.
Yeah, that's exactly the role he was born to play.
Finally, shall we finish up with a big screen recommendation, James?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple of things I just spotted that I thought were worth mentioning. We like to highlight smaller cinemas around the UK where we possibly can, and I just thought I'd see what was happening at one of the childhood cinemas that I used to visit, which is the Penistone Paramount, as it's now called, which has been it's been working it was like a theatre, I think, and then became a cinema. It's been working as an entertainment complex since 1914, so it's been around a long time.
Aww.
And they are currently running their very first ever Penistone Film Festival. And it's going to be a 2-day celebration of the origins of the motion picture industry with silent cinema, live music, theatrical performances, and immersive actors, which I'm down for all of that. So £50 for a ticket, £30 for concessions. I think that's for the entire weekend. You can buy for a day, you can buy for just the individual films. But I know that looks like a lot of fun. If I was nearer to Barnsley, I might pop down.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
But
I'm in.
But obviously that's for the northern listeners. Then obviously for those of you maybe based in London, Science Museum has got an IMAX 70mm season, which if I could afford it, I would be there seeing every single one. The seating is definitely not as nice as the BFI. I will heads up there, but
which isn't saying much. Let's be honest.
Yeah, very true, very true. But so there's a Christopher Nolan season coming up where they're showing all of his IMAX films on their IMAX screen. So that could also be a lot of fun.
Amazing. Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Groovy Movies.
Absolutely, and if you could leave us a like or a 5-star review, that all helps get the podcast out to a larger audience.
So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford, and James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod, or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.